just so happy to see so many of you who have joined for this demo. So today, like Sarvika said, I'll be taking you through some of the techniques that I use in creating my floating lily leaves paintings, which are fairly popular and have been requested from me quite a bit. So today I'm going to show you how I go through that process. And I understand that several of you have, you're ready with paints and your brushes and palettes and things like that. To them, I'd like to say, I mean, you're most welcome to paint along with me, but I would suggest that you all sit back and relax and watch me paint and take in the information, because I'll be moving pretty quickly. And I also have several stages of the painting in between ready, so that we don't have to waste time waiting for paint to dry to move on to the next stage. So it will be hard to catch up if you're painting along, but you're welcome to join in the beginning stage if you'd like to. So I'm going to dive straight in, and I'm going to start off by showing you which tools I use. For these kinds of paintings, I predominantly use palette knives, a slightly bigger one, and this is my most frequently used knife. If you're new to palette knives, I would suggest that don't just buy one or two tiny little ones. Experiment and buy several sizes and shapes. You might find that mark making style, different shapes will work for you. So the only way you will know is by experimenting and actually trying different tools out. So I'm also using tiny brushes, and this will be mainly for the leaves. We are using a really small canvas, and so the brushes are also small because the leaves will be small. But I usually work large scale. Today we're just going to be working on a tiny canvas, 1 foot by 1 foot. Coming to the colors, let me show you my palette. So this is, I'm using dioxazine purple by Liquitex. That's this. I'm using Daler-Rowney purple. That's this one. Camel's turquoise deep. That's this right here. And Camel's turquoise green. That's over here. And also black. Black is always important. Just a tiny bit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip the camera over to the canvas. So excuse me while I fiddle with this thing. And yeah, so as you can see, this is a 1 foot by 1 foot canvas. And the only thing I have drawn on there is the horizon line. Oops. Yeah, I think that's good. So the only thing I have drawn is the horizon line. I don't really pre-plan a painting too much. I don't sketch it out and things like that. I just paint and see where the paint leads me and go accordingly. I just kind of have fun, really. And okay, so let me show you how I load the paint. You know, I make sure that the paint isn't completely mixed together. I mix 2 or 3 colors, like collect 2 or 3 colors onto the palette knife and just go to town on the canvas. Okay, so can you see how the paints are kind of blending together on the canvas and creating these interesting effects? And they almost look like, they instantly almost look like water. It's just so fascinating. I never get tired of seeing what happens when paint mixes together on a canvas. It's so, you can't predict what's going to happen. You can't plan this stuff. You just have to paint and see where it takes you. So you see how quickly and easily that coverage came about because I'm using a palette knife. And you just keep going. So I'm sort of moving my palette knife in a slightly side-by-side squiggle. And that helps to create a little bit of texture. And texture is really great because it, when you put your subsequent layers, especially with a palette knife, it catches highlights in a very interesting manner. That again, for creating effects on water is brilliant. So
So that's how I'm just working through the space really quickly. I'm gonna get some of that turquoise in there now. See what that looks like. You know, at this stage, there's not much planning that's happening. I'm just having fun and sort of I'm just letting the paint lead me. And there isn't much compositional strategy that's happening at this point. A lot of these colors are reading as black, when actually they are fairly dark colors. You know, I've chosen dark colors because, you know, I want the lily leaves to pop. And if the only way to really do that is to create a situation of really high contrast. And if you're going to have light colored yellow lily leaves, you want to have a nice dark background on which they'll really stand out and pop. Let's get some brightness in there. I'm going to get some of that turquoise color in there. Let's not ignore the foresty kind of bit on top. It's pretty quick there. So you see how with a palette knife, things are so quick. It's amazing. And also, when you're using a palette knife, you can't be shy with using your paint. You have to just load your palette knife and not worry about wasting paint. Because as someone said, the only paint that's really wasted is the paint that's sitting in a tube. So don't like preserve your paints in amber for all of eternity. Use them and buy more. Keep using them. The only way you'll really get better in your art is if you keep painting. Use your paints, use them lavishly. Don't store them. Oh, you see that? You see how the green is nicely mixing in? Those are the effects that I really, really love. See that? So by kind of moving it along, so I'm sort of lifting a little bit and moving along. So it's automatically creating these ripples. And as usual with a palette knife, you get unexpected results. So planning is really out of the window. So if you're a very detailed artist and you really like, you know, planning your work beforehand, this is going to seem like craziness to you. But then, you know, you should play to your strengths. If you like meticulously laid out work, continue doing that and play to your strengths. Don't, just because something else looks good doesn't mean that it needs to be something that you adopt. This style of painting is something that really resonates with the way I like to operate in general. You know, I like taking things as they come and dealing with them as the situation demands without too much planning in general. So this fits my temperament very well. And, you know, the art becomes a reflection of the person, and the kind of art that you produce is also reflecting of their personality. So I like how spontaneous and unexpected the results are with this kind of painting style. I think I need a little more of that purple in here. Let's get some more purple. And I'm using heavy body paint because with a palette knife, it doesn't help much if your paint is runny. No water at all, straight from the tube, straight from the tub. The thicker, the better, although depending on the situation really. But yeah, thick paint is always a little better than a runny, uncontrollable sort of mess. So let's bring that up. So there's a bit of brightness on top as well. Now this might look a bit like a mess at this stage. Don't worry about that. There's something called the messy middle of any painting. And all paintings go through that, where you're just kind of laying down paint to start with, and then you work with what you have. So you will course correct and you will keep making this better and making this work, you know, and you'll find there will, a lot of this painting, what is done right now at the moment, will get completely covered and won't even exist. But there will be, because we'll be putting a lot of layers after this, but there will be parts of this layer that peek through eventually, you know, and that is what brings delight to a painting, you know, things that are not planned and things that aren't fully accounted for, just happening by accident. Happy accidents, that's what they're called. So you want to give room for happy accidents to keep happening. So, you know, having plenty of color at the bottom that can peek through on a brighter layer that comes above really makes the painting shine in a way that can't be explained. So that's pretty much done. So this is just an underpainting. Again, like I said, not too much thought to composition, and you're just kind of freewheeling and having a bit of fun. Right now, I'm just creating a little more texture. You can do that by sort of touching your, if you have a large palette knife, you can sort of just place it on it gently. Don't go crazy, but just place it on it gently and lift it off, and you get, you know, small areas of texture that can help. Maybe a little more turquoise here and there to brighten things up a bit. And this stage is pretty much done. Now, what I would ordinarily do is I would put this under a fan at 5 setting, and I would go and watch some TV or listen to some music or play with my son or something while this dried. Takes about, I don't know, maybe a half hour to dry fully because the paint is laid down pretty thickly. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the stage right here. So that took like, what, 10 minutes? Pretty quick. So, you know, small paintings are great to experiment on. If you're starting something out new, don't be too ambitious with starting out a thing, because your opportunity for failure is, well, chances of failure are much higher. So start small, and you can do a lot more experiments when something is on a smaller scale because it's so much quicker. So now I haven't, I would ordinarily fill in these white bits as well. I'm not going through the trouble of doing that because it's not really entertaining to see, but yeah, that's what I would normally do. So this is this stage. There's a bit of glare because, my God, dark paints are just impossible to photograph. But there's the beginnings of the background right there. And I would let this dry and go over this with a couple more layers to sort of brighten up this whole scene. So right now it's looking really dark and kind of, I don't know, formless and shapeless and meaningless almost. It will, I promise it will take shape eventually. So what I've done is, let me put this back on here. What I've done is, you know, like how in these cookery shows, they put something in the oven and they're like, oh, you know, I had something pre-prepared and this is how it's going to look after it's baked. So this is how that would look after it's dried out a bit, dried out fully, in fact. And when I remove the white, the colors can be seen a little better. So what I've done here is, now, first of all, if this looks a lot duller than the other one, you're right, it does. A lot of dark paints have this tendency to dry very, very dull, like they lose their intensity of color. But fear not, we are going to brighten up this space again with lighter shades of the same colors. And we're going to let that catch the texture and sort of look sparkly just by virtue of how we apply the paint. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in a new color now. This is my newest obsession. It's Primary Red by Liquitex. You know, when this paint is mixed with white or with my other new obsession, Portrait Pink, it gives a lovely kind of pinky, not quite pink, but I don't know, a peachy flamingo-y kind of color, which I adore. So I'm gonna mix, okay, so let me show you how I mix this. I'm gonna mix in a little bit of the red with a little bit of the portrait pink to make a, and I'm gonna load the pure pigment and the mixed pigment as well on my palette, on my knife, and I'm using the smaller knife now. And I'm gonna see what happens, all right? I don't know quite what's gonna happen. We'll take it as it comes and we'll go along. Oh, and I've also got a few lily leaves, the startings of a few lily leaves in there. I will show you how I do that in a minute. So let's start with the deepening of this background. If I just feel like this might be too dark, I'm going to mix in a little bit of the purple as well, so it's not too shocking to the senses as I apply it. And I'm just going to drag it gently. Okay, you see how it's just catching, you see how it's brightening up the painting already, and it's just catching the points that are sticking out. Let me see if I can get this closer. Is that better? So you see how, don't worry about things clumping up in areas. Don't be obsessive about the stage. Just have fun and see where it goes. Anything that comes on can be corrected. Acrylic is an incredibly forgiving medium with full coverage, and the crime scene can be completely covered up. So don't worry about making mistakes. You can keep making mistakes and covering them up. So if something is not to your liking, don't worry about it. You know, I'm going to use my bigger knife itself because I feel like this is too tiny. Okay, let's get back in there with some red. You see how that whole thing got brightened up immediately? So this is the basic technique that I'm showing you. So now you see the purpose of creating that texture underneath. It sort of lets the color underneath peek through while also allowing highlights to come through. Now I'm going back in with a little bit of dark, and you see how I'm mixing the dark in with the light. And again, creating those watery kind of effects. And I'm going to do a little squiggly thing here. See what that does. This is so nice. This is so much fun. I hope what I'm talking about is coming across in the video. I'm just kind of mixing in the colors of it. Let me do this. I might go in and darken up. Now, that lily leaf is probably just going to get covered up. Maybe not. No, actually, maybe not. Okay. I'm going to darken this just a tad bit. I think that's too bright over there. Definitely dark over there. So now I can show you how I cover up something that's gone too bold. See that? So now you can see how the blue is peeking through here and creating these beautiful effects. And so the whole point of the background layer is now making sense. I might break up this big patch over here with a little bit of purple. So that's the basic premise of what will continue along the entire painting. Okay, now I'm going to do a little more pink here. I have to leave some unpainted space so that I can show you the lily leaves. I shouldn't go crazy. At least that was the plan. Okay. Get back up here. Okay, now I'll do the same thing over here with a little bit of, isn't that pretty? That's nice, I like that. I'm gonna get back in there with some, I'm gonna use emerald green. It's a lovely turquoisey, greeny green. Like the other turquoise was more blue. This has a warmer kind of a green tinge, which looks really pretty when it's, oops, that's way too thick. I'm doing the same thing, just gently dragging, gently dragging. See, I'm creating that kind of shimmery look with little to no effort. It's like magic. I'm just going to bring in some of that brightness here as well. It's too bright. So you see how the minute something feels wrong, you can correct it so quickly, because when you apply paint with a palette knife, it's so immediate, you know. It's not like a brush where it takes ages. Like you have to keep putting on layers and you have to wait for the layer to dry. And you know, this, because you're applying paint so thickly on, there's a bit of glare. Is this better? And I'm also going to bring in a little bit of maybe some tree kind of forms over here. Okay, so it's a bit of black. Now what you're seeing on the camera is more glare than the actual color. It's not so black. It's just that the direction of the glare is different, so it's looking really, really black. It's actually not that quite that black in real life. Reducing the intensity of that black there was too much. And be a little bit of foliage, just drag the palette knife, a little bit of foliage. That black down here, maybe a few stick-like thingies. Oh, that's not a stick. Okay, that's pretty good. There's something going along here. Break it up a little bit. Break it up, break it up. All right. Okay, some sort of a tree form. Can that be seen? No, that glare is worse. Okay. Okay, let's continue with maybe the green that I was doing over here. I'm going to introduce one more lighter color. This is aqua green. Now, I know these are hundreds of colors. You really don't need that many colors. I am just lazy to keep mixing colors. You could easily make all of these colors by just having a couple of them and mixing them with white or blue, or, you know, you really don't need so many colors. It's a matter of personal preference, whether you want to have like a sea of tubes like that or just 3 or 4 colors. It's really up to you. You do not need to spend money keeping on constantly buying colors, I'll tell you that much. But it is more work. You do have to mix colors then. But you do discover so much. If you mix colors, you discover infinite more colors, you know. So that is a different kind of a world of possibility, which is also very lovely. See the shimmer that's appearing? So it's all because of that background texture that's created in the first place. Okay, I'm gonna, so I think you get the idea about the basic kind of layering that produces these effects. And you know, the more layers you do, the more interesting generally the painting gets, although you can go too far. There is a point, you know, a lot of painting is about knowing when to stop and knowing like when to hold back and not taking things too far. And that usually comes with experience. I sometimes take paintings too far and then I'll have to paint back over into things and then it becomes another painting altogether. So yeah, that is something that we just figure out with trial and error. You see that? Just keep going.
And with that, I'd like for you to please start.
Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to this evening of program, Chakras.
Okay, so I'm going to leave the texture thing behind now. I think the idea is fairly clear about what I went about creating this. You see, can you see the texture now? I think it's much clearer here. And from a distance, it gives that effect. From near, it might look slightly chaotic, but it does give that look from a distance that we are trying to achieve. Now, about the leaves. Let's get to the leaves now. So for this, okay, so first of all, let me explain the perspective of circles. Some of you, many of you might know, but some of you may not. When a circle, so a lily leaf is basically a circle when you see it from right above, but when it's on its side, it looks like an ellipse, And the further away the ellipse is, the flatter it is. and the length is less as well. So they're altogether smaller and flatter at the back and also less vivid. So the ones behind won't be as bright as the ones that we paint in the front. So keeping these sort of vague rules in mind, we are going to paint in some of the leaves. I'm going to keep the palette away because I can sense that it's disturbing the color of the video. Okay, so for the leaves at the back, I use duller yellows. So I'm using a bit of raw sienna, yellow ochre. These are all standard colors. Raw sienna, yellow ochre, a bit of cad yellow. I also have some, what is this? Brilliant yellow green, easily made by mixing lemon yellow and any kind of turquoise that you have lying around. Okay, so I'm getting out my brushes now. I'm going to start for the ones right at the back. I'm going to start with my thinnest zero. Where is it? Okay, I can't find it. Let's get the next brush on. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to do a raw sienna and basically just putting down lines right at the back. You know, it's not rocket science. It's flat, it's dull, and it's far away. Raw sienna, a line, that's it. And you want to sort of vary the sizes up a bit. Now these are looking rather dull, like they don't look like leaves at all. That's because it's just one layer. Now, again, with brushes, you have to always do layer upon layer to bring the effect out. So a brighter color will look brighter, but it needs 2 more layers for it to reach its full vividity. So for instance, if I were to, okay, let's just put a few more of these sienna ones down. Oh God, my hands are shaking. I shouldn't have had that coffee before this show. Okay, ditch the sienna, it's not even being clean. Let's go to cad yellow, okay? So what I want to do is, I've already put down some of these leaves. You wanna go in and brighten up some of these things, okay? So let's brighten this guy up. Just to make a couple of, so you don't wanna brighten up every single leaf. You wanna create a nice scattered kind of look. That's one of the things that I love about anything in nature, is that it has a scattered kind of entropy, a really unorganized, scattered beauty. And we as people who are painting or drawing, we tend to like order and tend to like repetition. So if you start painting a leaf, you tend to make every leaf the same size, every leaf the same shape. You've started loading on one color, you tend to make every leaf the same color. That's going to make your painting look really monotonous and dull. So the trick is to really mix it up and vary the sizes, vary the distances, vary the vividity of the colors, so that things look lively and interesting and more lifelike. Oh God. I've got paint all over me, hang on. Perils of being an artist, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, right, so so the buns right at the back are flat, and I've brightened up a couple of them. I'm leaving some of them dull. The ones closer to you are more elliptical and wider and slightly longer as well. So I'm just going to put a tiny guy over here. So like I said, make sure you have small ones and big ones so that you have a nice mix of all sizes and keeps the painting interesting. Okay, so I can only show you one layer over here, but I will brighten up. Don't worry too much about the shape right now. There can be a lot of course correction that happens eventually. And so you don't have to, like, we will be going in with black at the very end and cleaning things up. So, and I do realize these just look like discs at the moment. They don't look anything like leaves. Lily leaves have a really pretty slit in the middle, which I haven't shown. I will do that at the end with the black. Let's put one in here. I'm gonna get cat yellow there. So right now I'm just focusing on getting that ellipse roughly correct. Even if you go wrong, don't freak out. And like I said, acrylic is super forgiving. Now this thing has tilted off to the side a bit. I'm just gonna correct it a little bit. And don't worry, I'm not gonna paint every single leaf on here. That would take forever. So I'm just giving you a gist of what happens when you paint them in. Okay, so that's one layer. It will brighten. Oh, it's actually looking great. It's looking brighter in the video than it is in person. Two more layers of that and it would really pop. So you just keep continuing with the leaves, and as you go closer to the bottom of the painting, it gets wider. So let me try and put one guy right here. I don't think I have any other paint under that. I'm going to use a bigger brush for this. After this, I'm going to stop with the lily leaves. I'm going to go to the next stage. Oh, great. It's mixing with the paint underneath. That's okay. That's not such a big tragedy. It's just a different kind of green. Yeah, it's mixing with the paint underneath. This would work better if the paint underneath was dry. Okay. Right. And so on. I think you get the drift. A slightly pinky leaf, that's okay. And these squiggles are no problem at all. I'm actually going to create those kind of uneven surfaces with the black on all the other leaves, which look too perfect. That's not how lily leaves look. They're not, well, some are. Some look ridiculously like round and perfect and flat. I'm not sort of referencing those. I'm referencing the ones that have those wrinkles on them that are really pretty. They sort of have more energy, in my opinion, the wrinkly kind of cute leaves. So that is how these leaves have been put in. I hope that was, they don't look great. They need at least 3 layers. So I would go over this with another 2 layers of yellow. So it's like really opaque and like stands out of the background. That's because I'm using a brush. On a bigger canvas, I would use a palette knife and I would just go, because you know, on a small canvas, the leaf is small, and on a big canvas, the leaf would be so big. So you'd have to introduce some detail. So a palette knife really works and you can get real intense color. I would probably make this a little slimmer because it's looking a little out of perspective. Again, easily fixed with a bit of black and a bit of these background colors and going in and putting that in. So that is the gist of the shimmery bits, the lily leaves, and the shapes. Now I'm going to show you what is a close to, I would say, a 94% finished painting. Hang on, let me get all of this arranged. So this is a pretty much finished painting. With time taken to balance the composition, and you know, I didn't do this in 1 hour. I did this over 1 day. So there was time to make sure that there's enough light and dark, that there's enough small leaves, big leaves, that there are enough bright ones and dull ones. I really wish I could show this without the glare. It's so difficult. So as you can see, that scattered kind of effect that I love so much is brought in here. There is a little more to be done which is the final stage of the painting. And with that, I'll be able to wrap this whole thing up actually. So the only thing that's left is, excuse me while I fiddle around with this thing and set this up. Yeah, the only thing that's left to be done is, you see how I've introduced the slit in the leaf, and also, I don't know if you can see these little black kind of, I've introduced these ups and downs, like the leaf is wrinkled. I don't know if that's the right word, like, you know, wavy. So that kind of brings a vibrancy to the painting that I really love. And it also looks like the leaf is sitting on something because of that slight shadow that's created below the, you know, just inside the leaf. Such a simple trick, but pretty effective. So I've left a couple of leaves blank without, so these have 2 or 3 layers of the yellow. These are with portrait pink and a bit of yellow mixed in. This is that acid green I was talking about. There's lemon yellow, there is raw sienna, there's yellow ochre, there's a mix of all these colors. And they're all light shades so that they stand out against the, sorry, excuse me, so that they stand out against the background. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up close here and go in with a tiny bit of black and attempt to show you how I get those little details in. This is an awkward angle for me though. Okay, so you see how I'm just creating these little waves. Okay, maybe I'll put the slit in here. There. And a little more waves, waves, waves. Oh, maybe that's too big. That's okay. And don't space them too evenly. That looks fake. Again, don't fall into that trap of, you know, a rhythm forming. And you can do a little bit at the back also, just to kind of make it pop. There you go. That's looking cute. There. So as simple as that. There's one more to do. I'll show you that as well. Which way should this guy face? Maybe down here. You know, that matters too. Which way the slit faces. Don't have all the slits facing in one direction. That looks super duper fake. There we go. There. Okay. And a wave, wave, wave. What's that? So when you do this for all the leaves, the difference is remarkable, really. It kind of really finishes the painting. And perhaps I will also show a little bit of how you can even tweak the background after the whole painting is done. So again, you know, you keep having to make compositional changes as and when the painting is being completed. So you don't have to feel like you're stuck, or like, oh, I finished the background and I've started the leaves, and so I felt like my background needed a little element in there and it's impossible because I'll be messing up the leaves. Not really. You can be careful, use a small enough knife and just be careful. So supposing, say, I wanted a tree trunk like element to come here. You can do it, you can still do it. You wanted something to tie in the top to the bottom. Sure, no problem. No problem at all. It's kind of there. Don't do a continuous line because, you know, water breaks up a reflection. So really, and if you want, you can even sort of bring scratches in and break it up here and there. Yep, it's good. And that is that. We're done, guys. And so that was going through a little painting from start to finish at supersonic speed. I'm going to turn the camera around and open the floor to questions. Do you want to see the, maybe I should hold the painting, wait. So Survika, I think we can go straight to questions now because we have exactly 10 minutes. Wow, I'm right on time. That's amazing. Um, um, we can move straight to questions if anyone has any. And move right along. Sorry, I'm trying to.
Thank you, Remya, for your, for taking us through the painting. It was really interesting for a person like me. So, yeah. So, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask now.
Thank you, Survika. Thank you, Ramya, for taking us through this wonderful painting demo. I really enjoyed your class. I just have one question here.
Yes.
How do you, in case, like, as you were detailing the lily leaves, in case you mix up colors, like say, you just rub in a stroke of black onto the yellow leaf, how do you correct such?
Yeah, it's really easy with acrylics. Like I said, it's so forgiving. It has complete coverage in acrylics. So if you're using a palette knife, you can literally just wait for the paint underneath to dry, like the mistake to dry, and just go over it with a knife. If you're using a palette knife, if you're using a brush, you'll have to put a couple of layers on it. But really, it's not a big deal at all. Again, if you're using acrylics like watercolors, then mistakes are harder to cover up because you're diluting the paint, and so it's transparent and what's underneath will be seen. But if you're using them opaque like this with thick paint, you can, like, I can cover this whole painting and paint an entire painting on top of it, and you will not even know that you'll just feel, oh, it's a beautiful textured surface that you're painting on. I have done that. All artists do that. So you can get away with murder, literally. No mistake is too big to be hidden by acrylics, unless there's a huge amount of texture underneath. Like this has happened to me initially when I would have made the lily leaf, I couldn't get the perspective right. And so this one leaf was giving me trouble somewhere, and I had painted over it so much that it built. There was paint that built in layers over it. And so you could see the shape of the leaf. That, I mean, there's only so far that you can cover a mistake that's made 100 times. But even then, you can sand down paint and paint over it again. So there are like innumerable ways of covering things up. But with acrylics, simple mistake like a small line, no sweat. You just have to get in there with thick paint and cover it up. Not a problem at all.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Anyone else? Any other questions? Don't be shy.
Hi there, this is Navina. Go ahead, whoever. I'll speak later.
Sorry, I think both together shooted the question. Right, I will resume. So my question is, this painting will be an intermediate or a beginner or a advanced level?
Oh, okay, so that's a tough question to answer. I think whichever level you're on, even if you're a beginner, you have to start somewhere. So I would say if you're a rank beginner, this is a good spot to launch you into experimenting. I think that any artist needs to keep trying anything that they lay their hands on, like try different materials, try different tools. The first time I tried a palette knife out, it was like I met my soulmate. Like, oh my God, it felt so amazing. Like, you don't know until you try something. You won't know what works for you until you try it. So I would, if you're a rank beginner, take this as an opportunity to try something that you've never tried before and see where it takes you. I think anyone can try it. At the most, you might find that, okay, perspective is hard, or, you just, it's a process of discovering yourself. So I wouldn't say, oh, only advanced people should try it. There's no such thing. Everyone should try art and discover themselves through it. At the most, you'll have a painting that could be better. And if you
if you keep, trying, you will get better. So you have to start somewhere. So yeah, anyone can try it.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
So you mentioned watercolors. So I can use watercolors without diluting the same way?
I would not recommend that. Watercolors are inherently transparent. So it's a different medium altogether. You need an opaque medium. Acrylics are, they lend themselves well to being applied as an opaque medium. I would suggest getting a set of acrylics, maybe even if you get just a few basic colors, you don't have to get a ginormous set. Get a few, like I would suggest this size tubes, get just a primary colors, black and white, and maybe a couple of other colors. Because for palette knives, you do need more paint. You can't, those tiny tubes won't do. You will end up using the whole tube for this painting. So it is worth, and in my opinion, it is worth investing in different mediums if you're interested in art to figure out what works for you. So I'd say if you're curious about something, go ahead and do it. Watercolors will not give you the same effect, I can guarantee you that.
And you have to do it on a canvas.
No, you can do it on something called, there's something called acrylic paper that you get these days. Any art store should have it. It's a really thick gessoed paper. You can use acrylic paper, and they come as books, they come as loose sheets. I would suggest taping them onto a board so you get a nice border at the edges by masking tape, and tape the edges off to create a white border, and paint on the right in the middle. And when you remove the tape, you'll get a crisp white border that makes your painting look really finished. Although you don't need to do that. If you're in a hurry and you just want to paint, go ahead and paint, that's fine. But yeah, acrylic paper is awesome. It's really good. Takes less space than a canvas too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. This is Mubina again.
Sure.
This particular painting or any other painting, do we look at the nature and then paint, or do we look at something in specific and then paint? How do we look at the visionary? I mean,
okay, that's a good question. So when I started out, I look, if you can draw from life, if you can sit outside and draw a tree in your backyard or a plant in your house, there's nothing like it. It is totally different from drawing from an image. I would highly recommend drawing from life. It teaches you so much. Depth, perception is completely different with your own eyes versus a photograph. In the apps like water body, okay, you have to be really lucky to be next to a beautiful water body with lily leaves on it. But yeah, I used a lot of photographs in the beginning because it is tough to know about perspective. It is tough to know about how water behaves just from your imagination. Of course, you have to refer. You have to observe endlessly. How does the light fall on water? You know, what makes a composition look good? What are the values, the darks, the lights? What is it that excites a composition? All of those things you get to know by observing. So the more you observe, the better your art becomes in general. So if you are starting out and you need a reference material, go ahead and use photographs. I would veer against painting from other people's paintings. You can draw inspiration on techniques and things like that from other people's paintings. But what I did was, if something excited me about someone else's technique, I would use a black and white photograph that I took, preferably, or if I was using a friend's photograph, I would ask for permission from that friend before using the photograph. And go to black and white. That is an amazing way of not letting the colors in the photo affect or influence your color choices. So that's how I'm able to select, like none of these colors are there, I don't think, in nature, hardly. Okay, so the sort of courage to use any color under the sun comes from just not strictly adhering to what you're seeing on the picture. So using a black and white image really helps for that. And take inspiration from someone else's technique and see where that leads you in your own technique. Because if you're an artist at heart, you have an inherent mark making style, you have an inherent tendency that you want to bring out, that you want to discover. And you can do that only if you let yourself paint in a way that gives you freedom to do that. Like if you're copying someone else's style, you are looking at their style and like imitating it. So you're not discovering yourself. I would say draw inspiration and find yourself. There's nothing like it. Like that is really the way to go. So yeah, photographs work. Painting from life is the best. And try to find yourself while you're discovering things.
Which means, thanks for that. So just want to check, drawing is firstly we can draw and then paint. Will that in any way help?
If you're unsure, like if you need a drawing to make you feel comfortable, please do that. Please do that. But again, what happens when you, like for instance, if you drew out every single lily leaf, when you're putting the background, you'll end up covering it, or you'll end up being carefully painting around each leaf. So then it affects your, the freedom with which you move your hands. So I would suggest maybe you could lay a background down and then draw. That could help. If that makes you comfortable. If you need that kind of, okay, I need some sort of a feeling like I know where this is going, then by all means, please go ahead and draw. You can also just put tiny markers with paint, like, okay, maybe one leaf here, just a dot, and see if that compositionally looks good. You could explore with that as well. Instead of actually drawing the whole thing out, you could try that. But yeah, drawing, I can understand how you might want to draw these out because an ellipse is a complicated shape. So yeah, do whatever makes you comfortable. Draw it lightly so that, you can paint over it and it isn't seen.
This is helpful. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Survika, are we out of time?
Always.
Always. There's never enough time.
Yeah. Yeah. So if
I
we
guess,
have any, yes.
yeah,
So
I was going to say what you're going to say. If anyone has any questions, I guess you can direct them to Art and Beyond. You can find them on Instagram on artandbeyond.in. Is that right, Survika?
that's correct. Thank you.
And also, if you want to inquire about my work, I'm represented by them. So you can reach out to them and find out more about my work and commissions and things like that. And yeah, I think in the interest of being punctual, we have to wrap this up now. It's past 5 o'clock. So I would first and foremost really want to thank the Purple Turtles for giving me this wonderful platform and for allowing me my first ever live demo. This was really fun. Thank you so much for supporting the arts and for supporting artists. And Art and Beyond, Survika and Sadhana, you guys are like family to me. Thank you so much for your endless support. I love you guys. And thank you for arranging this whole thing and making this happen. It's been amazing. I'm so glad that we could do this together. It's been really fun. And everyone watching, thank you so much for joining. It's been amazing. It's been quite a big response. I'm quite surprised and really happy that you all took the time to spend a Saturday evening with me. And I hope the session was informative and I hope you learned something. And yeah, that wraps up this demo. And I hope you guys stay safe and take care. Bye.
Thank you, Remya.
Thank you. Really nice.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.